Tee Higgins is set to hit free agency, and the Bengals have a tough decision. Keep him, tag him, let him walk? Will he stay in Cincinnati, or will another team make him an offer he can't refuse? That's all coming up right now on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of this show, and part-time host and producer over at 105.5 FM The Roar. You can check me out every Thursday morning on the Mickey Plyler Show and Tuesday nights during the football season for my show, The Morgan Thomas Show. Thank you so much for being a part of Locked On Clemson and making it your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're new to the show, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and notification bell so you never miss an episode. That's right. I'm giving you exclusive Clemson content every single Monday through Friday, every single week. So don't forget to follow me here and also follow me over on X at The Morgan T Show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Check it out today at FanDuel. Coming up on today's show, I'm going to discuss what I mentioned earlier about Tee Higgins staying in Cincinnati, or maybe he's going to another team who gives him a massive offer. Also going to talk about a Clemson running back, or a possible Clemson running back in the 2026 cycle that one of my friends, JP Priester over at the Clemson Insider, has been posting about. And I'm interested. I took a look at this running back. I think you'd be interested as well to learn about him. And then finally, we'll finish up the show with Tom Allen, new defensive coordinator, learning a new, well, not a new Clemson tradition, a new Clemson tradition to him, but a long-time tradition for us. So he gets to learn that, and I'll give you my thoughts on that as well. So thank you so much for being a part of the show. Let's get it started. So first thing is Tee Higgins staying in Cincinnati or taking a big payday elsewhere. If you haven't heard, Tee Higgins is still one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL, in my opinion, and he's could possibly get ready to hit free agency. The former Clemson standout has been a key piece to the Cincinnati Bengals offense, but he has been playing under the franchise tag this past season, and so his future remains uncertain. A lot of these guys, they want to get long-term deals. They don't want to just sit on this one-year franchise deal. So with free agency opening up March 12th, the Bengals have a decision to make. Should they sign him long-term, which I think maybe he probably wants? Should they tag him again, which, you know, he would get good money, but he might not like the longevity of that because that's just another one-year deal. Or maybe they just move on from him and let him walk to another team. So the big question is, what will they do? Will they do everything they can to get him to stay in Cincinnati, or will they allow another team to take him? And what will he do? Honestly, what will they do? But what will he do as well? If you take a look at kind of where he's been, he's coming off a strong 2024 season, even though he dealt with a hamstring injury. He had 911 yards, 10 touchdowns in just 12 games played. And he was a vital part of their offense. He's really been a part of their offense, a big part of their offense since 2020. But, you know, recently his contract situation has been kind of complicated. Now, the Bengals could give him the franchise tag, but that would cost them about $20.7 million in 2025. He wants that long-term security, and I know you and we would love to have that too. His market value, though, is nowhere near, or is way above $20.7 million. It's actually what they estimate about $30 million in his market value. So, you know, about $10 million difference there. If he hits free agency, what teams would really want him or be interested in him? Well, some teams out there have mentioned the Patriots, the Packers, the Chargers, and we'll name a few others as well. But what things do we need to know about with this situation? Well, Cincinnati may not have the cap space because they're dealing with big-time contracts with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase coming up. The Bengals may not have the flexibility to also have him as well if he's demanding the highest amount of money at his position. And Higgins really could be a number one wide receiver somewhere else. I mean, Jamar Chase is their number one wide receiver. He's playing alongside them, but, you know, debatably, he's kind of like a number two wide receiver, but really not a number two. in my opinion, is kind of more like a 1A and a 1B situation, but maybe getting into a new system where he doesn't have to share as many opportunities with Jamar Chase could be good for him. I would say, in my opinion, obviously you have to balance what you really want in life. Do you want the more money? Do you want to play with a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, who seems to be able to get to the playoffs and maybe just a few pieces away from having a push to deep into the playoffs or into the Super Bowl? Or do you go somewhere else and make a name for yourself somewhere else? Maybe be the true number one guy somewhere else. Clemson has had a ton of elite wide receivers in the NFL. You remember guys like Sammy Watkins. You remember Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins. A lot of those guys are still in there. Hopkins just coming off of a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but he's one of those guys who, was the true number one at the Houston Texans, and then kind of moved around as he's getting older, and time's really running out for him as well. So he went over to the Kansas City Chiefs to see if he could win a Super Bowl, and he got all the way there. Unfortunately, was just a disaster of a Super Bowl. A great season for them, but not a very good ending to the season for the Cincinnati Chiefs. Few stats I'd like for you to remember or know him or know by Tee Higgins is he's ranked 9th in the NFL in 2024 in yards per game. When he's healthy, he is a top level wide receiver out there. He had 10 touchdowns last season, tied for 6th in the league, and total, he has 4,595 career receiving yards, which even as which you could say a number 2, puts him up there with being a true number 1 on many of the other teams. So a few additional questions or thoughts I had about wide receivers with Clemson. Tee Higgins' success really highlights the value and, the development that Clemson has been able to have, not only the development, but the talent acquisition, being able to find that in recruiting at the NFL level. I mean, Clemson really was, for a time period. Now, I know it's kind of hard to say this out loud, but Clemson was, for a time period, a wide receiver U type university with DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, Tee Higgins, Amari Rodgers, and among others as well. Artavis Scott, Dabo Swinney, Jeff Scott, they were the combination of being able to not only develop those wide receivers into the NFL, but get them on campus and get them committed to Clemson and be a part of something special. It's a direct reflection of what Dabo can do when he has the right pieces there, and how well Dabo has been in the recruiting trail. Can Clemson get back to that? I think they've made strides to do so. I think they have gone out and got, Galloway from North Carolina might be able to help them in the recruiting edge and in analytics. And Tyler Gresham, for the most part, I think has been a good recruiter at that wide receiver position. They've got a few guys that are superstars now in the making that we all are very hyped about. And Clemson has TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, who are very highly recruited guys who have already shown what they can do in their first season, and I think will just get better. So I do feel like Clemson has had a elite level success as a wide receiver U type university. Are they that right now? But no, not really. Over the past couple of years, no, not really. But what they have on their roster right now has to make you pretty excited, doesn't it? And another question would be, how does Tee Higgins benefit from staying in Cincinnati? Well, I think it really depends on the contract, because it kind of gets into a situation, to me, where you have to decide what you really want in life. Do you really, really want to just make all of the money and be the true number 1 and get the biggest, best contract possible for your position and your skill set? Then you definitely can do that. It may not be at Cincinnati. It may be somewhere where you're going to make all that money, but you're not going to really be able to get deep into the playoffs. And I think that there comes a balance between, okay, when have I made the money that I've needed? Maybe get into some outside football investments to where you can not have to rely so much on making so much money. And then you can just really focus on getting on and being a part of a team that can take you to the Super Bowl and win you a Super Bowl. So he really has to evaluate that. I think Joe Burrow would be a great quarterback to do it with, because obviously he already has a ton of chemistry with Burrow, and he's very strong in that offensive system already. So he doesn't have to find anything. He's got it right in front of him. The question is, does he want to spend another year not making the max potential that he can? That's really up to him. I also feel like being in that division and that conference is difficult too. Maybe he should move. If you move teams, maybe you give yourself a better chance to get deep into the playoffs. I know there's a lot of debate around that, because if you're always having to face against guys like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes and the Bills, and like Josh Allen is what I'm trying to think. If you're having to face against those guys a ton, it can wear you down for sure. That's tough competition just to even get to the Super Bowl, right? So would Clemson's wide receiver history be a major should Clemson's wide receiver history be a major factor in bringing is it a major factor in bringing in top recruits? I think so, without a doubt. Clemson's players that are in the NFL and still doing well, I think that helps their recruiting pitch. I think the guys that they have now will help them in the future as well. Young receivers look for a place that can build you a path to the pros and get you into that first round draft pick. And Clemson has proven that. Now, there has been a little bit of a break between the years when Tee Higgins was there, but I think Clemson's right back in the mix of being one of the better teams with the better wide receivers out there. So, hey, let me know what you think. Do you think Tee Higgins is going to go somewhere else? Do you think he should stay in Cincinnati? Do you think Clemson is building their way back to being a wide receiver U again? I'm interested to know how you feel about it. Coming up next, Clemson still hasn't offered this 2026 running back for the recruiting class, but with Georgia and Ohio State and Miami ready and getting into the mix and getting visits, are the Tigers ready to act now to get on maybe one of the next best running backs in the country? When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action, and if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three-pointer. I never feel like I've missed my chance. Plus, the app is very easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. You don't have to wait around. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so we're talking about, in the next segment, Clemson's recruiting. I like to kind of get into it a little more because, I kind of took a little bit of a break. I mentioned to you before that recruiting kind of got stale for me just because of all the money that's been going around and just really the tampering that's been going on behind the scenes. And I really don't know if these players really want to be at Clemson or if they're just doing it for the money or really just for the championships. And they don't even maybe want to interested in the university or going around campus or even studying. So it's kind of bothered me a ton about how recruiting is, because I at least still want to feel like the players want to be at Clemson. But let me get off my soapbox here about recruiting in general. And let's talk about Jae Lamar stock, and the 4-star running back from Colquitt County in Moultrie, Georgia, is already a top 100 prospect in the 2026 recruiting class. And he had a standout performance at the Under Armour Next Camp in Atlanta. And if you look at some of the social media posts about it, he was highly rated in that group. His recruitment is starting to heat up fast because he's getting that national recognition. So the big question is Clemson going to offer him? Well, as of right now, major programs like Georgia, Ohio State, Miami, they're already making their moves. They're trying to get visits with him. Should Clemson go out and extend an offer? That'll be up to CJ Spiller and see if he can get him on campus and make an offer. But I'll tell you, I'm looking at his video from huddle.com, and I really love what I'm seeing. He's one of the most sought after running backs in the 2026 class. I think he's in the top 5 in rivals.com. CJ Spiller has been talking to him for a couple of months now, and even Dabo Swinney has gone to see him in person. So it seems to me whenever you look at recruiting, I always like to follow the articles, but also follow the visits. If there's visits like in-person visits or campus visits or a ton of conversations being had with the player, you got to feel like they're interested, and obviously Clemson is as well. Lamar himself hasn't visited Clemson, and that could change because they're working on a visit. I'm hearing from Jason Priester that they're working on a late March visit in the works, and Clemson staff seems to be looking for that. A lot of times they like that. They want to see a player show that they are interested in the university and not just you as the university chasing the player around and begging for them and for their commitment. They want to see you come to campus and show that you're also committed and interested as well. So if he commits elsewhere before going out there, maybe Clemson would miss out. But I think Clemson is one of those teams that, as we know, plays things slowly, but they play things slowly in a good way. I think they try to find guys who actually want to be there. And as I mentioned before, it gets frustrating to me when you get guys that don't seem to like they want to be there. On other teams, I don't even like it for other teams. Even my rival, I don't like to see the Gamecock fan base get screwed over by a player who really doesn't want to be there. I miss the old way of college football where the players actually were committed to the team longer than they are now, and when they mostly wanted to be at the team or at the university and on the team that they play for. So 3 things that we need to know. Lamar has a ton of big interest, as I mentioned, from the big schools, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami. Dabo Swinney, CJ Spiller have been interested and been talking to him. So, there's some movement there. His high school coach, Sean Calhoun, coached current Clemson wide receiver Cole Turner. So there's an inside connection there that might work in some familiarity with Clemson and maybe able to get him onto campus. And Lamar says that he's looking for more than just football. He wants a family feel. So if you're looking for family feel, I think Clemson would be higher up on the list as well. So stats that I've seen from Jae Lamar, he's in last season, 2024, 7.9 yards per carry, very efficient, and almost 8 yards per touch is great, of course. 11 touchdowns last season, and he's ranked 5th nationally in Rivals recruiting rankings and one of the best players out of Georgia. So here's my thing. I'm looking at the huddle film, and this guy, I have written down that this guy is a instant playmaker when he gets the ball. They love to get this guy the ball in space. Now, he is a guy who I think he's running like a 4.5 40, something like that. From some of the things I've heard, you never can tell with some of these online things with recruiting, but this guy is a super fast guy. You see him they'll run him out to the short flats. They'll toss him the ball, and he's able to make guys miss. If you're going to go after his ankles or his legs, it's not going to happen. You are not going to get this guy down. He's going to go for deep, and he's going to go long for sure, and he's going to be able to outrun you. So he's going to break the leg tackles, and he's going to outrun you, and he's really going to take advantage of time when he has in space. So I really like what he can bring to the table. He does seem like a guy who could eventually be one of those 5-star guys if he keeps moving up the ranking list. They still have time. He would be a 2026 freshman, so you wouldn't see him this season, but you'd see him next season as a freshman. It could be one of those things where it fits pretty well for Clemson, kind of stacking on what they have, where they no longer have Maffa. So you're thinking Gideon Davidson, you're thinking Easy Omume, you're thinking Jay Haynes, Keith Adams, those guys that are currently on the team going to have to show what they can do this season. And then this guy could be one of those ones to come in and follow in the footsteps and just start stacking up the running back room like you really want, and have one guy good after the other, one year, each year individually recruited. So I think CJ, although he hasn't had an offer yet from what we know, should he, I think really, I can see where Clemson would be waiting to get him to come onto campus. But I think if you get him on campus and he shows his interest, there's no question to me that you got to offer this guy. He's got the talent. He's got the explosiveness that you want. He's got that speed that you want and that playmaking ability. So Go watch his film. You're going to be excited when you see it for sure. I know I was. I think the connection with players that are currently on the team, like Cole Turner, I think that is a big deal, because anytime you have a connection and you feel like it helps you feel like a place is home, helps you feel like there are guys there that you know and trust that also enjoy their time there. So I think that helps. And then the culture, obviously, Clemson is going to develop you beyond football into being whether you want to go to the NFL or whether you want to go into the working world and become a leader there. They're going to do that. So they're going to make you as well-rounded as possible, not just in football. So I think everything sets up well for him to be a good part of Clemson. We'll see how things keep moving forward as the offseason goes on. Clemson is still in a strong position, in my opinion. They can't wait too long on this guy, because you know how it is. It's all about what have you done for me lately? These guys want to get in, and some of them want to finish their recruiting up pretty quick. And if some of the bigger schools get in there, it might not be easy for Clemson to make up that lost time. Hey, let me know what you think. Do you think that Clemson should go ahead and offer Jae Lamar, or should they wait till after his visit? When you look at his huddle film, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like he's really good at it at the running back position, and he could be elite? Next up, I want to talk about in the final segment, new defensive coordinator Tom Allen, and we are hearing that he is preparing for one of the most unique experiences in college football. All right, running down the hill is one of Clemson's, if not Clemson's, most historic traditions and well-known traditions. It is really not just a tradition. It is an entire experience, not just for the fan, known as the greatest 25 seconds in college football. And as the buses come around and the police cars come around and they get to the top of the hill, and there's all the rocking back and forth, and the players pile up at the very top. They rub the rock and the cannon goes off and they run down the hill and the balloons go up. Well, let me take that back. The balloons do not go up, but the colored powder, which I got to say, if you look back on X, who was the guy who really stumped for the colored powder gunshots? I really stumped for that over on X. So if you're seeing orange and purple plumes of gun smoke, powdered smoke up in the air, that's really, I like to say that was me. Really, nobody asked me, nobody inquired, nobody DM'd me, but that's one I'm going to write up on my obituary that I was part of. To be honest, I want everybody to remember me, that I tweeted something, or whatever you call it. I posted it on X, something about that, because Texas did it. And I thought, man, Texas doing that was really cool how they shot that up. Clemson could do that instead of balloons, because everybody wanted the balloons back. I missed them as a kid, but now the smoke, I like to take credit for that, even though, maybe not. But all right, so Death Valley in front of 82,000 fans, the greatest 25 seconds in college football. It's amazing for the fan experience, but it's also pretty cool experience for the players and the coaches as well. And Tom Allen has not been a part of that ever, or anything really like that. His debut is coming up pretty soon. Well, it's going to be here before you know it. I like to say pretty soon, but August 30th is kind of still a long way away. But he's going to be facing off against LSU. The stakes are going to be high. The fanfare is going to be there. It's going to be rocking, and he's going to have to run down the hill for the very first time and avoid the disastrous face plant, which we have seen in the past, and avoid really not only the face plant, but getting seriously injured, which I always, knock on wood, always hope that never happened. I always pray that never happens. Nobody gets seriously injured there. Now, I got to say, when I read this, that he was doing this, when I heard about this and Dabo Swinney mentioning it, I myself have also run down the hill during a football game. So I don't remember what year it was. I wasn't married yet at the time, or maybe I had just gotten married. So you're talking about 2010, maybe 2009, 2008 time frame. Dabo Swinney was the coach. They obviously weren't national champions at the time, but during halftime, I was part of the Clemson veterans, group organization, and they sent out an email about how, they wanted veterans from different time periods and from different wars to run down the hill at halftime. And that, they wanted people from the Iraq, Afghanistan war period, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, those to go down the hill. And I thought, man, I have definitely got to be a part of this. And all you really had to do was go line up at the top of the hill at halftime. So, and you could bring, your spouse or your family members or your children, whatever you could. And so I was like, I'm definitely doing this with Audrey. Now, I was just wearing tennis shoes, and it was, honestly, when you slide down it as a kid, when I used to slide down it as a kid in cardboard, it was much more fun when you did it that way. I got to say, if you're trying to walk down it, it's really not that easy to do. It's pretty steep. And I remember being a student and having to stand there with my ankles killing me because you're at like a 45-degree angle with your toes pointed down and you have to sit that way. Now, that's why if you notice when people get there early, they like to stand at the one edge. So it kind of slopes down and it has a plateau in the middle and then it slopes down some more. So typically people like to rush to the very end where you can lean up and prop up against the fence. That's always really good. Or the sides where you can prop up on the sides, or on that middle plateau area where you don't have to have your ankles killing you for 4 hours. So those are the areas that you typically want to be in to be the most comfortable. But the hill itself, if you notice, man, it is a lot of these players go full speed. Some of them go really slow, like the offensive linemen. I would prefer those big men, defensive linemen, big men. You guys can go slow. I'm never going to make fun of you. And please don't face plant. I think, gosh, I want to say, I can't remember off the top of my head what player face planted on one of the big games where they had College Game Day, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, it was not good. I mean, I don't think he was injured in that case, but it is definitely one of those things that you have to get used to and you have to be comfortable with. Otherwise, I mean, you could always go really slow, but when it's the start of game time and you're going down for the opening kickoff or before the opening kickoff, I mean, you're going to have a little bit of speed with you. And Tom Allen just seems like one of those guys similar to Dabo Swinney, similar to a Brent Venables. He's got a lot of energy. He's got a lot of pep in his step. He's an excitable kind of person. And I can see him getting really extremely excited and running down the hill full speed. And, he is a little bit older. So we got to be careful. You don't want him to be injured and not be able to do his job on the sideline. That's for sure. But Clemson has been doing this for a long, long time. I was looking it up. I mean, running down the hill has been something since World War II time frame. They've been doing that. And then Howard's Rock was introduced in the 60s when they brought that from Death Valley, California, to kind of symbol not only good luck and unity, but also, where Frank Howard says, if you're not going to give 110%, keep your filthy hands off my rock. Well, it kind of gives you something of a sense of commitment to what you're about to do for the team. And Tom Allen, from what I hear, is training. Okay. He is training to run down the hill. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that's a pretty good thing. And also it shows you that he's committed to learning the traditions of Clemson and not just here for a short time period. I think it's pretty exciting. He doesn't want to tear a hamstring up or pull a hamstring or roll an ankle or anything like that. And I don't blame him either. And also I was thinking, it's 110 feet down. It's been going on since really World War II. So I think over 80 years now, right? Give or take. And you're in front of 80,000 fans. Is there anything better than running down the hill, rubbing the rock and running down the hill? I really don't know. I'm very biased when it comes to Clemson. Maybe you can tell me what you think, but I'm very biased when it comes to Clemson. I think running down the hill is probably the best entrance in college football. And I'll tell you why. It doesn't need smoke and a specific song, which, if you know anything about me on the radio, I've been arguing about what kind of song they do when they start out many, many, many years now. But I think they need to stick to the tradition, and they have been this past season of the band. Don't give us any kind of cheesy 80s songs anymore. Give us the band. But if you look at I've been to Auburn, right? I went to Auburn and during that season when they went and won the national championship game. And they do the war eagle flight, and that eagle flies around the stadium. I think that's really cool, but it has nothing to do with the players. And I don't even remember if any of the players were actually on the field at the time when that was going around. Now, I got to say, to see an eagle fly around the stadium, this one was like really close to me. It seemed like it was pretty cool, but not as cool as Clemson. And then Oklahoma, my brother-in-law is a big time Oklahoma fan, and the Sooner Schooner, that one, not only is it cool, but it is dangerous as well, because I've seen that, that wagon tip over many times for the ponies getting too excited. And plus, it really goes back to, you're not really involving a player in that sense. Usually it's some celebrity or some well-known person or whatever it may be, to the university. And I don't know. I think that's also another prop as well. You could probably argue, if you're on the other side, that the Rock is a prop in itself, and maybe even the Hill is a prop. But I like what Clemson has. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, player-driven traditions out there. Name another player-driven tradition that really involves the entire team and the coaches and everything doing something together that's unique, as like getting on the buses, going around, rubbing the rock, running down the hill. All that seems pretty unique when it comes to, a lot of teams just have smoke and fire and fireworks and just run out of a tunnel to a certain song. I think Clemson and the running down the hill, trumps that by 1,000 for sure. And does it help Clemson make Death Valley and Memorial Stadium one of the toughest places to play? I think so. When you ever ask me how tough is it to play at Clemson, I always look back at when Brian Kelly came from Notre Dame, and he had this just look of, just terror on his face, with his eyeballs just so big, like, oh my goodness, they're running down a hill. I do think it's pretty intimidating to see a team of, young men that are massive just running down a hill after a cannon, ready for the charge, ready for battle. Pretty cool. So without a doubt, to me, it is one of the greatest traditions in college football. And it's pretty cool that the new defensive coordinator is practicing for it to make sure that he doesn't get hurt, and does it correctly when the season starts in August against LSU. So awesome times. Hey, that's it. It's more than just a tradition, though. It brings the energy and helps Clemson be dominant at home for sure. Well, that's it for today's show. Follow me over on X at The Morgan T Show, and stay tuned as we continue to track Clemson in the offseason. We've talked this week about basketball a ton and gave them a ton of props, and baseball and football and recruiting. So I try to cover all the things that you'd be interested in. Hey, follow me over on X. And if you have any topics that you'd like for me to cover or questions that you'd like for me to answer on the show, I'd love, just send me a message over there. And thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono, Kenton Gibbs, keep it real, bringing you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll see you at the top of the hill.